Only bilingual people truly know how terrible Google Translate is. I always used to translate stuff to Chinese then back to English. That was pretty entertaining. Part of this problem is basically impossible to overcome though, because there's plenty of stuff that's common in one language but doesn't exist in another. It's honestly not as bad as it used to be. There's plenty of good translation software out there that can produce texts that sound okay. Give it a few years and Google Translate could be the go-to software for translations. This post was sponsored by Google. For real though, AI will do magic for translation software in the near future. It works pretty well for short statements or single words. It falls apart in long texts. But TBH, even the bad translations still allow you to at least get the meaning of what is being said most times, and that's the real use case for it in my opinion. Use it to translate menus or signs when you are abroad, not to translate your books. It really depends on the languages you're translating. I know more than 2 languages, some European, some Asian, and there is a huge difference in translation quality depending on which 2 languages you're dealing with. Some of it is due to grammatical differences, but sometimes there'd be a word that exists in one language but not another. Correction: only bilingual people truly know how good Google Translate is. I'm not even fully bilingual, know about 40 Spanish, but Google Translate has been about as close to perfect as you can ask for with regards to translating between English and Spanish. The main downfall is that it might be too formal, but again, not that bad. My Ukrainian friend uses Google Translate when he can't think of a word in English, and it always makes sense. I was trying to explain a word in English to him and used Google Translate. He literally laughed and said that's not a word. It is made up. That's when I realized Google Translate was not so optimized, lol. To him it looked like I typed the equivalent of JS Kidden J in English. Just a totally made up word that didn't make sense. I am a bilingual, and yes, Google Translate is really wrong, but only occasionally, very rarely. It's not that bad, TBH. It was bad like 10 years ago, but it's very reliable now. As a bilingual person, Google Translate in 2024 is pretty fucking amazing. Sure, if you lean into slang or otherwise flowery language it may trip up, and translated texts always require a proofreading to make sure intent isn't lost. But other than that, it's just good. Danish to English or English to Danish, it's quite good. You obviously have to be mindful of idioms or words with more than one meaning: scat, girlfriend, boyfriend, treasure, or taxes, etc. As someone who only speaks English, it's still very obvious to me when someone is translating to English from any language with a translation program. Common phrases or words are easily translated. However, not all ideas in one language take on the same meaning importance in another. Speaking another language literally changes how your brain interprets concepts. There are languages where basic concepts you take for granted are completely non-existent. What about people knowing more than 2 languages? I learned that Google Translate is absolutely atrocious with Finnish because a few of my Finnish friends will occasionally speak it with each other. Pretty much every single sentence is wrong. It works well enough to do its job. Facilitate communication between 2 people that don't speak the same language. I use it on a regular basis for Spanish, Arabic, and sometimes Punjabi. Even had to chat with a few Ukrainian refugees at work a couple times. My grandpa was bilingual, so I'm at least one for bi. Translating 30 years ago, you must own 2 heavy paperback dictionaries per pair of languages. Search every single word in alphabetical order. Apply grammar rules that you either know or can interpret correctly reading from 2 other grammar books. Only young bilingual people think how terrible Google Translate is. I use it to translate blocks of extensive work to avoid doing all that typing. Then, just run through and fix the errors. It depends on how common the language is. My mom is a native Gujarati and Hindi speaker with professional level Marathi and academic medical Sanskrit level proficiency. She said the Hindi translations are close enough, but Gujarati was really weird using words she hasn't used since school. She told me that the Sanskrit was completely wrong or incomplete. It has gotten really good these days. It is frustrating how, in some places like Taiwan where I currently live, people just refuse to use Google Translate due to a single, viral article about a mistranslation like 6 years ago. Instead, they rely on a locally made translation app that literally just translates Chinese word for word into English, without even taking grammar into consideration. Guess what, folks? A company as huge as Google is always improving its offerings. Google Translate of 2016 is not the Google Translate of 2024. Hindi-speaking Indian who knows English over here. It's not that terrible, surprisingly. It used to sound overly formal, but they've tackled the issue over the years. It even knows how to translate my completely unique name back into Hindi with the correct spelling. Almost all sentences are sensible. I haven't tried any edge cases, though. No need to be bilingual for it. For instance, if you ever try to translate Russian texts about nuclear research sites into English, you'd end up reading a paper that looks like you're reading about lighthouses. Mayak is Russian for lighthouse. It also is the name of their main nuclear research complex site. In my first language, there are parts of words with no definition in either language. So when I write in my first language, I speak like a white person because I know English more than my first, and as a result, Google translating my writing into English is 99% accurate. It got better over the years. What I am shocked by is DeepL. Everything coming from there is pretty accurate. True, but most people are bilingual. How do you call people that know one language? Americans. Same goes for English localizers for Japanese anime. Many insult the weebs for complaining about them not knowing Japanese and therefore shouldn't be commenting at all. But as a bilingual, I am siding with the weebs because the English localization of Japanese anime is shit. How about trilingual people? But seriously though, G-Translate nowadays are quite good. Although still not as good as LLM. Albeit nowadays LLM like Bing Chat is getting stupider. Whenever I use it, I tend to translate back and forth repeatedly, and adjust the original statement until it's coherent in both languages. There's a sentence that if put through Hungarian to English it said blow job. That error has been corrected for quite a while now. It actually became my benchmark of translation. Assuming OP is bilingual, or else this wouldn't have included the terrible instead of good or bad. Or has no idea and just parrots what they heard. No? You need just to speak the language it was translated into. Excuse me, in quadrilingual, can I not know it? Reverso has long been better than Translate. Wait till you come to India. Hoo boy. Back in my day, people knew how bad translating services were when they got their work back full of corrections with a note about how Babelfish doesn't work, like you think it does. Hi, so true. I speak 5 languages. You're correct, it's far from perfect. I see that when translating in my native language. But man, Google Translate has got me out of some serious jams throughout my travels. It's better than not having this tool. True, try to translate a poem back and forth, or English language 1 language to English, and you will know too. It's actually gotten a lot better over the years. I'm not even bilingual, I just kind of know a little bit about the common phrases and structure of another language, and I'm already seeing the cracks. Pretty fucking terrible. You type a lingo in and it spits out the other. Yeah, not always good, but better than nothing. What you got? Absolutely not. I feel that it translates things into my native language very well. It used to suck many years ago, but now it can even understand context a little bit. I'm trilingual and honestly it's not that bad at all. Obviously it's not perfect and sometimes it comes out a little awkward, but people overreact about how bad it is.